Hey up! Well, hey! Welcome and welcome back. Look at this here landscape. Do you know where we are? Should do by now. Right, just me and Andy today. Got Andy at the back. Tell you what, we're an hour behind schedule, and let me tell you why we're an hour behind schedule. It's another tale of woe. On my garage, where I keep the 4 bikes, I have a combination padlock, a bloody expensive one as well. 50-60 quid of a job. Combination padlock. Comes to dial in the combination this morning to get the bikes out. Guess what? Combination's changed all on its own overnight because it wasn't working, jammed shut. Obviously it's some internal mechanism failure. Ooh, but let me tell you, the air were blue. So yeah, 2 or 3 year old that lock, and it's not exposed to the elements, and it's packed in. And the only thing that's going to cut off a lock like that is an angle grinder. And guess where my angle grinder is? In the garage. Bloody hell. And I didn't have the car today, so I had to get an Uber to B&Q in Keighley and back. So that were 20 quid. I had to buy another angle grinder, 50 quid. I had to buy a diamond cutting blade, 15 quid. And a new padlock. Hey, over 100 quid by the time I'm done. So got back home and had to cut the sodding thing off. I don't know. Any road up, we're here. Got the lock sorted, and we're out here in this glorious, expansive vista of Yorkshire countryside. Bit nippy. We are at altitude at the moment, and we are in we're sort of 2/3 of the way through October, maybe 3/4. Aye, so well into autumn. And I've just introduced Andy to the culinary extravaganza, which is the Weatherhead's Butchers. He's not had one before. The Weatherhead Butchers doner kebab pie. Woohoo! They don't have them every day, but when they do have them, aye, cracking. So if ever you're in Pateley Bridge, get this end to Weatherhead's Butchers and see if they've got the old doner kebab pies going. Beautiful. So I get a couple of questions from time to time about, dare we say, speeding offences. And it's a subject I've covered previously on this channel. Speeding offences, how they are detected and enforced, particularly if they are done so through automated means, or from semi-automated means, i.e. a van parks up and somebody's sat in back pointing a laser guided camera at you. And I would say that these days those two methods, speed cameras, including average speed cameras, and the mobile quote-unquote road safety vans that park up and check speed, probably account for, I bet now, 80-90% of all of the speeding offences enforcement in this country. Of course, back in my day, it was pretty much exclusively done by police officers in the road traffic department, either using a handheld radar at a static point or by using a system called VASCAR, which is a mobile and or static average speed measuring device. Can't even remember what VASCAR stands for. Vehicle Average Speed Calculator, and I don't know, something like that. Those were the two methods. You either had a handheld radar gun and you get out of the car, highly visible in your white top hat and your fluorescent coat, and you just exercise a bit of discretion as to at what threshold of speeding you would actually stop a driver and proceed to advice and or enforcement, depending upon whether the attitude test was passed. And that worked very, very well. And the other way was VASCAR, which is a car-based unit where you park up and you have two distinct points a certain distance apart, and when the car hits one you click on, and then when the car hits the next one you click off, and you get an average speed reading. And you can do that either while you're static or while you're following another vehicle, and that's how it was done. But either way, it involved actually engaging with the offender, the driver. It actually involved speaking like human beings do and giving advice where appropriate. It isn't always appropriate to use enforcement, but of course you can't get a speed camera to do that, and you certainly can't get somebody sat in a van pointing a camera doing that, because you know, you don't get stopped and spoken to, you just get a letter in the post, and the letter that you get in the post will be to you as the registered keeper of that vehicle, and that will be a statutory notice that you get requiring you to furnish the identity of the driver of the vehicle at the time of the offence of speeding, of exceeding the speed limit at such and such a location. And if it's you, you've just got to fess up and pay the penalty and suck for the points, or if you qualify to go on the driver awareness course, or if it was somebody else, then you are required by law to identify who that somebody else was, whether it's a member of the family or a friend, or of course if you're the relevant officer of the company, then notify the notify the authorities of the identity of your employee, basically. That's what that notice is. If you fail to comply with that, you're a naughty boy. So that's how it works. But of course a lot of cars are on the road hugely exceeding the speed limit, are either not registered to anybody because they're being used as criminal pool vehicles or things of that nature, or they're registered to a hire company, and due to inaccuracies in paperwork or other bits of creative accounting, can't identify who the driver was at the time. And there comes a point where basically when you try and identify somebody for speeding via those means, you meet a law of diminishing excuse me, you meet a law of diminishing returns fairly rapidly, and you come to a dead end. Aye. So yeah, because basically what the law says is, if you get that notice saying tell us who were driving this vehicle, if it wasn't you, what the law says is that you won't commit an offence if you did not know, nor could with reasonable diligence have established the identity of the driver at the time. Then you don't have to comply with the notice, you don't commit the offence. So that's how the automated system works. But of course, back in the day, if we had any doubts about the identity and the address of the driver of a particular vehicle, they got to ride in a police car to the home address to check who they were, and that they lived there. So a lot of people would try to stiff you at the roadside. It was called stiffing, giving you false details, and you could smell them a mile off after a bit if they try to stiff you. And it's usually because they had something far more serious to hide. Either they were disqualified from driving and therefore had no insurance, or they'd taken the car without the owner's consent, or they just had no insurance, or there was something dodgy about the car. But there'd always be a reason if they were going to stiff you. Or they just thought it'd be, you know, a bit clever to try and outwit the old traffic plod. But back in the day, in the big city, we were having none of it. So, oh, your name's John Smith, is it? Aye, right, and your address is number 2 Acacia Drive. Yeah, right. Have you got an identification on you? No, I don't. What, nothing? Driving licence? Utilities bill? Something like that? No, right. In that case, step into my car and we'll take a ride to Acacia Avenue, and we'll find out whether there's somebody at home there that can verify that you live there, or whether your neighbours can verify that you live there, or whether your key fits in the door, or whether you've got your own documents there, etc, etc, etc. Not difficult. So yeah, it wasn't at all difficult to remedy such attempts to frustrate the onward passage of justice. But now, no. Now the bulk of the revenue that comes from the enforcement of speeding offences comes via automated systems or mobile quote-unquote safety cameras. And I'm sure we've all come across them, and indeed I've fallen victim once myself, quite a few years ago, and had to go on a speed awareness course. Yeah, but there you go. So I just thought it probably appropriate, because I do get asked the question whether there's any get-outs from speeding. Well, generally the answer to that is no. The problem you've got with virtually all road traffic legislation is it's known, or they are known as offences of strict liability. So you can't say, sorry, I didn't know I was speeding, it's an accident, it don't matter. The fact that you didn't know is irrelevant, because it's an offence of strict liability. And that applies to just about everything under the Road Traffic Act. Whereas in other areas of criminal law, for you to become culpable, there usually has to be either a degree of intent, i.e. knowledge, or at least recklessness. So that's generally why there aren't any get-outs once you get nobbled for speeding. So yeah, and it's probably appropriate, because people also ask, well, you know, road traffic officers supposed to be specialist officers, what additional training do they get, or do they just get handed a white top to the wrap and a fast car? No. To become a qualified road traffic officer, or certainly in my case back in the day, and I can't imagine that it's any different now, basically you have to do your grounding as a normal beat PC for at least 2 years, usually quite a bit longer than that, and then if you're interested in becoming a traffic cop, you pretty much need to get the support of your local supervision division. Then you need basically to go on a driver assessment at the Force Driving School to see if you've got what it takes, because some people are just not born to be able to drive to police class 1 advanced standard. So you have to go and have that assessment, and then if they think you've got a bit of potential, then what happens is eventually you'll get what's called a road traffic aid course, where you for a number of months you accompany a time-served traffic cop, and you learn the basics of operational roads policing, and then you need to go on in my case, a 3-week-long intensive road traffic law course, learning about all the traffic law, which is all your road traffic offences, and then all the boring stuff around tachometers and goods vehicles and weights and foreign vehicles, all the really complicated stuff. So you do that, and then you have to pass that, and then you do an advanced driving course, 4 weeks long in the first instance, really intense, a lot of theory work, 4 weeks solid of driving every day to the highest of standards based on the police system of driving that's underpinned in a manual called Roadcraft. Aye, so that's what you have to do, and of course you can fall at any one of those hurdles. So it is quite an intense process to get through, to eventually be able to put your white topped cap on and drive a big fast car. But the beauty of that process was, I mean, we were all absolutely thoroughly up to speed with all aspects of road related legislation, and when we did engage with quote unquote offenders at the roadside for whatever reason, at least we knew what we were talking about, and there was a conversation to be had, and there was a degree of discretion to be applied if it were deemed appropriate, all of which has pretty much gone now in favour of automation, which of course generates an awful lot of cashola. There is, so basically you're caught. My advice is put your hand up. if you've done it, put your hand up. It's not the end of the world. But if you want to know sort of what has to be proved, because notwithstanding all of this automation, the offence has still got to be proved at the end of the day. If you challenge it, somebody has still got to prove you've committed the offence of speeding, and prove it to the criminal standard of proof, i.e. beyond all reasonable doubt. And there are certain procedural aspects of the law in relation to speeding that apply. So if you want to challenge a speeding ticket and have your day in court, the things that you sort of need to be looking at are first and foremost corroboration. So there are certain offences, it's laid down in statute, there are certain offences that must be corroborated in law. See, there's a lot of offences, probably most offences, where corroboration is desirable, you know, more than one stream of evidence, more than one witness, say, but not essential. But there are certain offences laid down in statute where the law says corroboration must be present before there can be a conviction for this offence, and speeding is one of them. Now, back in the day, the corroboration was either the Vascar system or the handheld radar. So the equipment corroborates you as an officer. So you'll see a car and your experience tells you that car's doing well over 30 mile an hour, so therefore you either click on your Vascar device or you engage your radar, and sure enough the machinery tells you that this car's doing 45 mile per hour in a 30. So your observations are thereby corroborated. Likewise, if you're following a vehicle at speed and your speedometer as a pursuing vehicle is showing 90 mile an hour in a 70, and the car in front is actually gaining on you, then your observations are corroborated by the speedometer in the police car, and that corroboration has to be present. The thing that goes with that is that the equipment which is doing the corroborating must be certified. So all this equipment's got to be regularly checked, calibrated, and a certificate of compliance issued. And if you're challenging either the fact that you're before the magistrates answering a charge of speeding, or you've been convicted of speeding and you're appealing it, what you are going to need to do to stand any chance of being successful is to show that that corroboration was absent because the device in question was not calibrated and certified in the manner required, and you are entitled as part of your defence to see and have produced a copy of that certification of calibration. And a lot of times in the past that hasn't been forthcoming, because if you think of the number of speed detection devices that are being employed up and down the country of various sorts, it's not hard to imagine that just occasionally the old paperwork isn't up to date. So that's what you would need to do in those circumstances. So what I'm absolutely not doing is saying if you get a speeding ticket, challenge it and go through all these processes. If you've been speeding and you know it and you've been caught, just pay the fine, just crack on. But if you're genuinely of the belief, for whatever reason, that the speed you've been recorded at is not accurate, then you're entitled to request to see the certification in relation to whatever device it is that's captured you. So like it's like the fella in the speed detection van, probably not a police officer actually, but again, that person's view of your vehicle looming into view at what appears to be excessive speed is corroborated and to a large extent confirmed by the speed detection device that's being used. Now, it's slightly different in relation to static automated speed cameras, but they do still require the certification and the correct calibration, and if you were to challenge something like that, you would be entitled to see that that's been done. So that's the route you would need to go down, but you really would have to be pretty sure in your own mind that you weren't doing the speed alleged, because you'd be on a hiding to nothing. Yeah, so that's just a little rundown as to how it works, but I always return to this default point, which is automated speed detection devices, although a financially very efficient way of enforcing road traffic legislation, are far from the best way when you look at it in the round, because there's a lot of things that a speed camera cannot take into account. But there you go, they earn a lot of money. Hey, enough said. So I hope that was of some interest to you, and if it was, let me know. There are a lot of things in relation to all aspects of law that the police enforce that might surprise people. It can be quite interesting stuff, not just the road traffic stuff. But yeah, so let me know if that was of some interest to you, and I can always do some more occasionally. Hey! But of course, my message is what it always is: ride safe, be kind and respectful to other road users, and of course, I'll see thee